Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whichever time zone you are joining in from. Thanks a lot for showing up for this telecom webinar. I hope you all are having a fantastic day. Today, we'll kickstart with a very exciting topic, strategies for enhancing customer engagement in telecom. We are really excited to have you all here. So let me begin by introducing myself and AI Core Spot as a platform to you. My name is Nitin Naveen. I'm Vice President Innovation Strategy at AI Core Spot. With around a couple of decades of experience in different consulting firms dealing with emerging technologies, I feel fortunate to consistently engage with a lot of stakeholders, global leaders, and their incredible problem solving and innovative ideas. Joining me today, there are a couple of my colleagues. Arvind is there in the front end, and he has done an exciting, amazing job. Naveen, who is there in the back end. So all of these couple of guys will bring some energy to this event. So a big applause to them for their dedication and hard work to bring this webinar in shape. Now let me tell you about something about our company, AI CoreSpot, as a platform. It was founded around 4 years back, and it was created to serve as a knowledge hub focusing on different emerging technologies, which is AI, Gen AI, ML, robotics, IoT, and much more. Our webinars aim to share the latest technological advancements in the industry. We dive into various tech sectors, unveiling a fresh theme every month and steadily gaining momentum. Our goal is to become the leading AI-driven community worldwide, where individuals like you with similar interests can contribute to mutual growth and success. We are committed to organizing industry-backed webinars, hybrid events, face-to-face events, grounding our knowledge through credible data from esteemed industry leaders, subject matter experts, thought leaders, all our trusted partners, including InfoVision and Digit7 as well. Additionally, we fine-tune our content across various digital platforms. We have a lot of digital platforms, which includes blogs, podcasts, videos, and newsletters to shed light on the ever-evolving industry. Now, coming about today's webinar, for which all of you are coming here for. As I said in the beginning, a really exciting topic is up for today, which is enhancing telecom interactions with AI and innovation. Our speakers will provide details and deep dive in few pointers like key trends, personalization, quality of experience, role of emerging technologies like AI, ML, Gen AI, and a lot more, which is going around in the telecom industry. Our expert panel will share valuable insights and engage in great discussions that you won't want to miss out. So let's kick off the discussion with some quick highlights. Meet our community partners for today. We have great companies, which includes Western New Web Corporation, Twilio, Zoom, and InfoVision, who played a crucial role in making this webinar a success. A big thanks to all our attendees. Your time and presence means a lot to us. We appreciate you being here to achieve your goals and connect with the fellow participants. Our platform's main goal is to help you gain valuable insights and build meaningful relationships. So if you leave with a few innovative ideas or build new connections in the near future, we'll consider it a job well done. Let me introduce our esteemed speakers for today now. First speaker is Mike Talbot, who is Senior Director Technical at Western New Web Corporation. Our second speaker is Ankit Avasti, who is Director of Engineering at Twilio. Our third speaker is Brandon Knight, who is Chief CX Evangelist at Zoom. And fourth speaker and moderator for today's event is Arindam Lahiri, who is AVP at InfoVision. Just one liner disclaimer before we start. The views shared by all the speakers are their personal ones, and it's not related to any organization which they represent for. So now over to you, Arindam, to begin this exciting panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Nitin. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Ankit. Really appreciate this, and I think we're all looking forward to this conversation and this discussion, which evolves around customer engagement. We're here for telecom, but customer is at the core of any business, right? So it starts there. I think we need to pay some focus and attention in terms of how we are kind of evolving as we enter into new eras and new technologies and things like that coming in forth in the world of technology. So I think I'll start with you, Brendan. For example, the customer engagement, right? So what it means to you Uh, what does it mean by personalization, from your perspective, and how do you see that?
I think Actually, I think it's interesting that you start with personalization because I think that was an evolution of the customer engagement that I'm not sure all of us saw coming. Back in olden days, we were taught you had to wow your customer, right? Like exceed their expectations and stuff like that. And then we learned that the customer really didn't want to be wowed. They just wanted it to be easy. They want your business to be easy to do business with. They wanted it to be simple, right? And now we're learning the next logical step is they want the personalization. They want to know that you know who they are. They want to know that you have information on them. We've all had the opposite experience, right? We've all had the experience where we tried to engage with a company and they ask us all this information on the IVR, and we got to put in our firstborn and press the right numbers and put in our social security number and all that kind of stuff. And then an agent gets on the phone and asks us to do all that stuff all over again, like they don't know who we are, they don't know we called before. So we definitely want those to have better experiences. I will tell you that something that is on the horizon that I think is also becoming important with personalization is we have these two concepts of the customer experience with customer engagement, right? And we have this concept of employee experience. Those have to be merged. I think that's what we're seeing now, that the customer expects the fulfillment of what you tell them is going to happen. They expect to communicate. If you have to transfer them to a different department or somebody else needs to do something, they want all that data, all that information to be together in order for them to have a holistic experience. And so I think that's what we're seeing as the next plateau or milestone, however you want to look at it.
I think that's a great insight there, Brendan, because like you said, right? So it's the personalization part of it. I mean, this is something very new and it's evolving.
Yeah, and it makes me feel
So,
good. I mean,
Mike,
no,
sorry,
good.
no, I was
I was
going
gonna
to Mike.
say.
Sorry, I was going to Mike. Being in the telecom, I think QoS is a big term. We all know, like, quality of, but QoE, quality of experience. What does that mean to you, Mike? And can you share some of your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I think Brendan, kind of framed this up appropriately. Consumers, they want to consume. They don't want to know how. They don't want to know why. They don't want to jump through hoops to have to do it. They want to get on their devices and ubiquitously consume content, whether that's streaming content, whether that's XR type applications, or whether that's the gamers that just want that quality of experience to be fantastic. Quality of experience, what does that mean? That means when I get on and I use my service, it works to my expectation. And I think this is one of the most important areas that the industry is seeing right now. It's not about speed. It's not about how fast you're going. It's, can I get on and do what I want to do without any problems? And this is actually driving the industry. However, how do we measure quality of experience? Well, for a gamer, things like lag, or what we call on the network side latency, are key and important to being able to measure that end user experience. When we look at streaming media, we've moved away from legacy TV to now streaming platforms. That streaming platform needs to be delivered to that consumer without glitches, without problems, with just a pristine user experience. So what are the repercussions if we are unable to meet that quality of experience expectation? I think it's very simple. If the operator is unable to meet quality of experience for their subscriber levels start to diminish. If that subscriber experience or quality of experience is great, word of mouth travels very fast, and everyone will understand that operator provides this excellent quality of experience, meeting customer expectation, and their subscriber base will grow. So it's going to be very important as we move forward that not only can we meet that customer experience, but again, I want to reach back around to what Brandon brought forward, the personalization factor. If I'm a young family, I may want something like advanced parental controls to keep my kids off the internet, until their homework's done. But if I'm not a young family, do I want advanced parental controls shoved down my throat? Of course not. So we want some personalization of the service. If I'm an older guy, like me, I may be an investor, so Brandon, no laughing. I may need some enhanced security. And, as we went through COVID a few years ago, learning, working, teaching from home, that was a platform that we were thrown into very quickly, very inefficient in the beginning. However, that is not going away, but it was accelerated. So as we move forward, the quality of experience means the most to the subscriber, to the operator. They need to be able to adequately measure quality of experience to ensure that their customers are achieving that expectation. I'll throw it back to you, Arvind.
Thank you, Mike. If I could, just follow up with you on that, since you mentioned about, gaming and speed and security and stuff like that. But if you look at the pipe through which, for example, in telecom, right? So we are looking at 5G cable or, at home Wi-Fi. So, talk us through a little bit about the quality personalization experience and, in that regard, in those areas, which is really the backbone of, how we communicate in this world.
Yeah, so, coming from 20 years at a tier 1 operator, I used to ask this question: what is the most important node of the network? And everyone would raise their hands and they would jump in: the core, the edge, MEC. And I stood up and to everyone's dismay, I said, no, it's the node at the customer site, because the customer is most important. So what does that mean? Number one medium that is being consumed today, Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi needs to be pristine. If you're fighting to get on Wi-Fi, or if the customer does not have a good Wi-Fi connection, the rest of the network means nothing. I'm not saying the rest of the network is diminished in importance, but it really starts in the home. So we see people today on laptops, on mobile devices, on gaming systems, all connected via Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi experience needs to be pristine. We see this evolution from Wi-Fi 5 to Wi-Fi 6, now to Wi-Fi 7. We hear of these speeds that are coming up, 40 gigabits per second over Wi-Fi. Well, let's be realistic. What is really needed? Peak average consumption in the US home, 125 megabits per second. Wow, it's not that much, but they're selling us gigabit. They're selling us multi-gigabit. Again, the speed doesn't matter. Pushing back, it's that quality of experience. So as we look at Wi-Fi, we see the advent of mesh systems, making sure that I have Wi-Fi distributed across my home. But as those were thrown out to us in the initial time, we would have problems where a device would stick on one access point, and all of a sudden Wi-Fi experience was not optimal. So we see mesh systems evolving. This term SON, self-organizing networks, to be able to support the movement of devices so that they can be load balanced across the home. When we think about things, we look at network as pie. We look at the stations or the devices as consumers of pie. We want to make sure that we have the ability to provide enough network to support the application that the end user is going to consume. And I think that's really the end game that we need to get to. We see this advancement in Wi-Fi 7, where now we have items like MLO, multi-link object, where we can start moving away from the access points, and instead of disassociating from one and reassociating to the other, interrupting our quality of experience, we're now able to stay on the same access point, but the band will change, ambiguously to the subscriber, while with no interruption of quality of experience. So I think the focus needs to continue to be on the home as the foundation. And then we need to very quickly look to, how do we measure when we get outside the home? Is a customer a frugal guy with a low speed tier, maybe bouncing up against that? We need to be constantly vigilant in understanding, our customers getting what they're looking for. And remember, I'm going to reach back out to Brandon now. They don't want to know about it. It just needs to be easy. So when we communicate issues back to them, it needs to be in simple English, things that they can understand. Hey, you don't have enough Wi-Fi in the home. Hey, your speed tier isn't what it needs to be. Hey, we see some congestion. Can we come in and fix? They don't want to know how to do it. They just want it to work.
That was really insightful. Yeah. I think Brendan, you have set the foundation very solid, so we kind of keep coming back to you. But if I could come to Ankit real quick on this one, right? So in terms of customer engagement, personalization, as we see, like we have multiple devices, the bandwidth, the usage have become so much, and a lot of people hopping on. So scalability becomes an important issue here, or something we should be looking at. So how do we see customer engagement at scale? And if you could give us some examples from your experience, Ankit.
Yeah, so I guess
So I
a few
think
years ago. Oh, I'm sorry. My
Go
apologies.
ahead. So as Mike and Brandon have said, that I think personalization is no longer a nice to have. It's sort of become like a default expectation from customers' perspective. Partly because some of the leading brands are already doing it, and I think at scale, it's basically comes down to three fundamental challenges. One is you have, as you also mentioned, like these fragmented data silos. You have data coming from device telemetry, from customers interacting on your mobile or web app, uh, marketing data, data collected from your customer service operations or customer support operations. And all of these data sets are isolated, are collected at different latencies, making it very hard to sort of stitch together. So that's first. The second challenge relates to the volume and the velocity of processing this data. As you mentioned, like this is really a lot of data, and batch ETL jobs kind of trying to stitch this data together into comprehensive user profiles is not really um, capturing the intent at the right time. By the time you're done with these sort of pristine user profiles, you've lost a lot of time that you could sort of act on those insights that you derived from doing that. And lastly is the activation gap. Like even if you build this pristine data set collecting all the different modalities together, how you get that data from uh, to downstream systems that drive engagement to the customers, whether it's your marketing system, whether it's your IVR or customer support bots. For instance, Brandon brought up IVRs, right? Like, I mean, imagine calling in, and if the customer support agent or even an AI bot could have the context of what I was trying to do on a mobile app or web app, maybe trying to upgrade or downgrade my plan, uh, that context obviously makes it much easier for the agent to do the job, but enhances customer experience dramatically. Another example could be if I could in real time figure out, like, if I'm out of my country and on a roaming data plan, I'm running out of data, can you proactively suggest me an upgrade rather than having me run out of that data, and sort of aim for that customer delight rather than a lot of frustration.
Definitely. I think those are some very good examples, right? So Brendan, I have to come back to you because data is, we're talking about data and real-time data, and the historic portion of it, like what the you have built as a profile for a customer. So help us with this, like in terms of customer experience, how we can use the real-time data and the historic data to build a better experience for a customer.
Yeah, I think that's huge, especially considering I'm gonna take Mike's line. I'm an old guy. I've been in this space a long time, and believe it or not, I remember running contact centers when we got the reports the next day. You went in, and that's when you saw what happened the day before. It wasn't so very little of it was actually actionable. It was really just information, right? It was reporting. Now you have the ability to do things in real time because you know what's going on, and it's not always just in a customer service, like phone. Like I'll give you an instance. I fly a lot, as many of us do. We travel a lot, and one of the coolest real-time experiences I had was recently my flight out of home was delayed, so I was going to miss my connecting flight. That's not a big deal. It's a law of averages. I fly enough that eventually I'm going to miss a flight or it's going to be delayed. I don't worry about that kind of stuff. What was cool is that the airlines had texted me that they realized I was going to miss my connecting flight. They had already booked me on another flight, had me ticketed, sent me the information of where the new gate was versus where I was thinking I was going when I was landing. So I'm stress-free now. I'm sitting on the plane. I'm not worried about getting off. I'm not worried about missing my flight. I'm not worried about calling customer service. I land. I know where to go. I know what to do. You know, it added a few minutes to my time. That type of using information in real time creates not only a good experience, but it takes what could have been a bad experience and proactively makes it a great experience because of my expectation, right? My expectation is I got to figure this out. But the airlines is like, no, we figured this out for you. This is what you're going to do. So I think that's important for users, for businesses to know that if you use real-time information correctly, you can not only make it, you know, oh, that was a nice to have. You can actually exceed what someone is expecting and make it a great experience.
That was actually a great example, and I would love to know which airline. I wish all airlines does.
I'll tell you because I love them. That's Delta. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Of course. No surprises.
Delta keeps me stress free, and I don't know anybody there. I don't work there, but I'm a happy customer.
No, that's actually a very good example in terms of how things are changing, because obviously, you know, going for a flight and things like it's stressful, like you said. So that's a great example in terms of how things are changing. So Ankit, if I could come back to you, right? So now let's talk a little bit about strategies. I'm going to go to all of you actually in terms of the strategies we are trying to put, because I think even the title of this conversation is strategies for enhancing customers. So, you know, as we talk about data, as we talk about, you know, scalability and things like that, one thing that comes is, you know, privacy is one big factor, right? Because we have seen even the leaks and deep seeks we are seeing these days, like, you know, so what is your take and your recommendation in terms of privacy and some of the regulatory aspects of it as we look into the data for personalization?
I think if you look at the current landscape, right, like it's such that both customers and regulators are rightfully becoming increasingly aware of hazards or rights related to privacy. And as a result, you're seeing new regulations getting proposed, getting implemented, whether it's the use of AI with data or just the use of data itself. And at the same time, as we've highlighted, customer expectations as it relates to personalization are also increasing over time. And I think striking this sort of a balance of personalization and privacy fundamentally requires investment in some key areas. One is having data minimization by design. It's very sort of attractive or tempting to aggressively collect customer data, but making sure that data collection and access to that data is minimized by design, so that you're only using data that is used to help the customers and moving any KPIs for the customer or your business. The second is having an auditable consent log. It's surprising how many businesses don't do that consistently, like having opt-in or opt-out logs for all the different features or products that I've signed up for. Finally, having a lot of customer engagement platforms or marketing platforms typically have this sort of third-party data enrichment. Trying to do that in a privacy preserving manner is very important. And just the last point related to AI and ML applications particularly is, I think with these devices becoming really like full-fledged computers on their own, there's an opportunity to push a lot of ML and especially inference on device and on the edge, so that you're basically doing most of the computation on the device itself and only passing the final inference rather than the raw data.
So that's very helpful, Ankit, and we will come to AI, because these days no conversation is complete without we talk about AI, Gen AI, and so forth. There was one interesting thing, Mike, since you mentioned about some of these areas. So we often, now that we are using so much of data, and there is in the behind the scenes, the data centers and things like that running so and using so much of power and stuff. So where do you see sustainability playing a role here, and what is your take on that?
Well, so Ankit had a really important thing he brought forward, and how do we get the device or the information, the customer private information, how do we keep it on the device, yet get enough visibility up to the network, up to the cloud, so the operator understands what's happening? And then let's look across, Europe, now into the United States, where sustainability and power consumption is a concern. So we're moving to devices that are faster, more powerful, have more compute, Wi-Fi, higher power devices so that we can reach. And then we have this other concept called sustainability, where we want to drive down the consumption of the device. However, we now want to move the capturing of information and the ambiguity of that information up to the cloud, so that we understand how things are going on. This is driving a decent amount of conflict across the industry, because as everyone knows, in Europe, the sustainability requirements are very strict. We see that moving forward across the international scene, but then we see this other divergence where we need additional compute in the home. When we look at taking that information, and let's say I've got a small subscriber base, 10 million customers, and I'm going to send KPIs up to the network, up to the cloud, and again, proactively get in front of that information. How do we scale that, right? And so we need to find this balance between, distributed model, and, I'll look over at Brendan, because, he's probably as young as I am. 40 years ago, we did cloud computing. We called it mainframe computers, right? Everything set up in the cloud, and we were dumb terminals. And then a few years later, we moved to distributed processing, where some of the processing was done by PCs out in the employer side or the consumer site. And then we moved forward, and we are now back up into this cloud instance. When, for example, mesh came about, all the transactions were being managed up in the cloud. But guess what? If the cloud got busy, things went awry. And so we're going to need to get to this convergence of a distributed mechanism, a distributed flow, where we can process some locally, and if need be, we can go up to the cloud for additional information. Now, back to your question, how does that impact sustainability? I think there was this concept that we were going to do everything in the cloud, so the home could be this sustainable model and drive power levels down. But in reality, I think the industry needs to start waking up and looking at the picture from end to end, because it's not about the home, it's not about the cloud, it's about the synergy between the two. And when we look at the power needed to support that, we work into a distributed model. And I think this is going to be how we are going to need to move forward. Put enough processing in the home, put enough processing in the cloud, make sure the processing in the home is very agile, very reactive. Because if I'm using an IoT application, for example, I'm coming home and I need to open my door, and I say, hey, Alexa, open the door. And it takes 20 seconds for Alexa to respond. Guess what? Alexa is going to be out on the front porch tomorrow, and I'm going to move back to a key, which means I really need to have some of that processing local. But that means I need more horsepower local. So the sustainability argument is moving forward very dramatically, but we're going to need to come into this synergistic relationship between the home and the cloud to ensure, again, that quality of experience is meeting or exceeding customer expectation.
Absolutely, Mike. And I think I couldn't agree more with you, like on that. Like, if you look historically, uh, the architecture has fundamentally remained the same. Previously, it was mainframe dump terminals. Now it's then distributed. Now it's again cloud, and terminals again. You can call our PCs, IoTs as terminals. So it's essentially that model kind of repeating itself in different shapes and form. So yeah, I mean, definitely there's a synergy that is required there. So I think I have a few questions, and maybe can I shoot one over to you, Brandon? If, in the meantime, before we jump on to our next set of topics on AI and stuff. So, and the reason I say that is, like, I think I think Mike was always referring to you guys as the young kids in this group. So there's a question here. It says, as Gen Z and Gen Alpha reshape expectations around speed and authenticity, how can telecom brands design engagement strategies that not only deliver fast, personalized experience, but also humanize data to build genuine trust? And are there any standout strategies from other industries you would borrow to do this better?
Wow, that's a big one, but actually, this is probably going to be a good segue to our AI segment of our conversation, because the way to do that is by having AI really crunch your data, and to me, the way to humanize the data would be to think about what is your customer actually trying to accomplish, right? And we do that a lot with like disposition codes and stuff like after interactions. But a better way to do that would be to have a consolidation of that data available to your customer in real time and proactively suggest things to the agent. Like, we all know about AI on the front end with like chatbots and stuff like that, but agent assist, where the AI is actually helping the agent figure stuff out, is a burgeoning thing in our space. That's working. I'll give you an example. There's an insurance carrier, and you're listening to the call because you have AI or call. You're listening to the call, and the caller is asking about tires. Like what size tires or what brand tires like come with their car. An effective use of the data and being proactive would be looking back. And if you look back in that person's file, and you'll see, hey, you know what? They filed a claim 2 days ago because they were in an accident 3 days ago. And if they're asking about tires, they probably want to know, are tires covered under their insurance plan and where they can get them from. And how cool it would be if the AI would then suggest to the agent, hey, this person probably wants to know if the tires are going to be covered. Here are the local places where they could take their car under our approved repair shops, and their tires are covered at 50%. Giving that information to the agent, who can now deliver that to its customer, but also telling the agent, hey, they filed a claim. You can humanize that. So now I'm not just answering a question about tires. Right now I can say, hey, listen, I'm sorry about your accident. Glad you were okay. Looking forward to getting your car fixed to get you back on the street. You know what I mean? It's taking the data and remembering that you're talking to a person. I think that's a great way, and I have seen that being done. I gave the insurance example, but they're also doing that in healthcare as well, where they're taking the data and actually feeding it to the agent in real time, thinking ahead, and then allowing the agent to humanize what they're telling them. So I think it's a great question, and it's definitely a direction we need to continue to go.
Absolutely, and I think it's just a little bit would be interesting to know, like, how deep the rabbit hole goes, because we are looking at, for example, in your case, right? So we had this tire, like, we're looking at, hey, what are the local agents who covered this and so forth. But then you're also looking at this whole supply chain of, okay, who are my suppliers and how we are connected to them. So I think data definitely plays a role, and setting that up with AI and enabling all the other businesses. Well, I think that would definitely create more opportunities and probably take us to a better place, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So I think I have one more question. I think I can take that, right? So as telecoms adopt omnichannel strategies with AI and automation, how do you ensure consistent brand voice and truly customer-first experience beyond just having a support team? Takers on that question?
Yeah, I'll start, and then I know Mike has answers for that. I'll make mine quick, because I'm gonna give you a best practice, and then I can let Michael take the theory. One of the best things you can do, to be sure your brand permeates throughout your organization, is to make it known. There's so many companies that still function in siloed environments where the support team's over here, marketing's over there, the field sales team is over there, and they all have these mantras they're running by, but they don't communicate with each other. And that goes back to the thing I said at the beginning. Your customer deserves a consolidated collaborative experience from your company, regardless of who's delivering on the end. Those groups need to be together. The other thing I'll give you as a best practice, because it's helped me actually as a contact center leader in the past, is I always did a day in the life. I had my field sales people periodically come out of the field and go sit in the contact center and take phone calls. I had my people from marketing come into the contact center and take phone calls. I had the contact center agents go and spend a day with a person doing marketing or branding, trying to run advertising. I had the contact center agents go and spend a couple of hours in the field with a field sales agent. That brings your brand holistically, because everyone understands what the other person is trying to accomplish, what their job is like, and what delivering that one message that comes from the top looks like in those different silos, those different fields. So over to you, Mike.
Hey, thanks so much, Brandon. I'm gonna, so spot on, but I want to take us down a little bit different path. We're 20 years into broadband, and the operator is still waiting for the customer to call him up and tell him that the network is broken. They go up to the call center. The call center then needs to go into discovery mode and figure out what's going on. Wow. We're 20 years into broadband. We're 2025, and we're still waiting for the customer to tell us what's wrong with our network. This has got to be the first part of the change. I wanted to touch back on what Brandon said. Having the experience, the onboarding experience, understanding the customer is really key and important to that onboarding experience. But at the end of the day, once the customer's on board, the happier they are, the less they have to interact with anyone, is really going to drive that better experience. So imagine if we could have a distributed AI model where I've got a router AI engine or a router experience engine sitting on my endpoint device, looking at what's happening in the home, looking for signatures, looking and waiting to see how the device is performing, and proactively taking opportunities to either enhance the network connection, enhance Wi-Fi, allocate more bandwidth to that subscriber on that specific station to meet that customer experience, driving down the need for a customer support team. Because at the end of the day, Brandon, I want to put that customer service agency, I want to put them out of business. I want them out there to support onboarding customers, to really bring them into that, to really give them that personalization. I don't want them answering phone calls. Hey, it's broken. Hey, it doesn't work. Hey, I can't get on my Wi-Fi. Hey, it isn't working. That just has to change. When we look at an average telco today, 3 calls per year per customer. Wow, it's painful. Not only is it painful for the customer, it's painful for the operator. So when we look at this opportunity for I want to say a distributed AI engine, because we want to make sure that that personal information, that customer private information, doesn't leak out. How many letters has everyone had saying, hey, your data leaked? Hey, we see it all the time. So the tendency to be very aware of customer private information is key and important to building up your image as an operator, right? Hey, guess what? I'm going to go to operator X, number one, because I have this great customer experience, because they've never leaked my information, because they're not reaching out to me with advertising based upon what I watched last night on TV, right? That is really going to drive a more positive experience moving forward. It's our opportunity to really take AI to the next level. But again, It needs to be agile, needs to be quick, and it needs to be focused on what the customer is doing. If we do it generally speaking, guess what? Ankit, his behavior, Brandon, his behavior, my behavior, I'm sure we're very different in how we consume, as well as our spouses and our children, also very different. If I have a generalized schema just looking at one type of individual, I really don't have that personalization, which then again is not growing my brand. So I think there's a lot of work to do in front of us. 2025, we're behind the scenes, right? We're very behind. It's an opportunity to really jump forward. I think you're going to see a lot of interesting things happen very shortly. We're looking at the platforms that are out there, Purple Foundation, RDKB, the ability to deploy applications on a per subscriber basis. That's a paradigm change from what we've seen in retail or from operators where, hey, everyone gets a device or everyone gets multiple devices. So I think the opportunity is in front of us. But again, back to you, Aaron.
Sure. And I think, some way or the other, AI is coming to the picture. So let me come to you, Ankit, right? So help us, how AI ML is playing a role in this area of customer engagement and personalization. And also, if you could also help us with teams and companies starting with AI ML, where do they start? What do they do, for some quick gains and having a shorter term as well as a longer term vision and strategy?
I mean, so to answer your first question, it's paramount for using AI and ML to meet increasing personalization expectations from customers. There's just no way you can have a rule-based system that adapts to so many different customer personas, or it's really impossible for you to distill these sort of complex rules from data yourselves. And these are also sort of evolving over time. So you really need both sort of predictive and generative AI to drive a lot of these personalization strategies. When it comes to teams building these solutions, I always suggest people to start with the simplest use cases where the impact is very quantifiable, it's very clear, and there is no organizational friction to get that out the door. And ideally, you want to start with building an end-to-end steel thread that you can show and sort of illustrate the value from, and then you want to iterate. Any application that uses AI and ML, you talk about like some of the biggest AI applications like search engines and ad bots and ad targeting engines. These are all things that have improved over time significantly. So having that end-to-end steel thread and then having a system that allows you to iterate based on your KPIs is key.
That's a very good, thought process there. And how about Gen AI? So that's the new thing. I mean, not new anymore, I guess, but yeah. So how do you recommend on those lines in terms of adopting Gen AI?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Gen AI from a customer experience perspective, it's basically just I think of it as driving to, or rather deriving sort of from two key motivations. One is the need for deeper personalization that Gen AI offers. Now I don't have to build, let's say, a marketing creative for 10 or like 20 different cohorts. I could build one for each person at scale. So that's what generative AI offers. The other interesting angle, especially from customer support and service perspective, is this idea of like cost efficiency, where you have a lot of customers reaching out to you. And ideally, as Mike suggested, you want to reduce the number of these calls in the first place itself. But a lot of the near-term strategies you're seeing is how you can push a lot of these customer queries to automated systems or AI bots, so to speak. And the challenges in my mind to adoption in those cases are basically one is hallucination. These models can often be incorrect. So the other is depending on your application, the cost of deploying, and like it's very easy to have a proof of concept, like you individual instances where you get that feel that sense of delight. But when you roll it out to production, we've all sort of heard a lot of horror stories of customer support bots really not being on point or grounded in data or just outputting incorrect details. Lastly, I also think the pace of development in this area is not helping enterprises adopt this as much as it's possible. Like there's a consistent pressure from your leadership who are like reading headlines of like this company did this company did that, and that's not really allowing uh, people to roll these strategies out and see the performance live, and then give it time to sort of evolve, iterate, and get to a better place.
I think that's a very good point. Yeah. So you had something else to add, Ankit?
I was just saying, and also depending on your application, you obviously want to have like guardrails, you want to have human in the loop wherever that decision made by an AI could be of like significant consequence. But there's a lot of applications where it's not that case, and where I would sort of that's where I would encourage teams to sort of pick those use cases first, where the cost of a bad decision or a poor decision is not that significant.
Sure. Brandon, help us with some of the, maybe you can just throw some light and give us some examples of some, practical applications of AI in this field. And, where do you see this is going? Your recommendations in the field of customer engagement when it comes to AI, ML, Gen AI.
Yeah, I think some of the practical ones you can take advantage of, I'm going to frame in one of the ones that I think is most impactful, because there's a lot of practical ways. But we talked a lot about data, the integrity of data, how you can use data, making data actionable. I told you before that back in the day, reports came the next day or whatever like that. Well, there's this other thing that happens when an agent takes a phone call. The agent has to summarize. They put in notes of what the call was about. And then the agent goes through this list of dispositions where they have to choose one of the dispositions that the company has given them to choose from on what that call was about. And then the company's making decisions based on information. Well, I don't care how good your agents are. Human nature is if you have more than 10 choices, the agent's picking from the first 5 consistently. And God forbid if you have one that says miscellaneous or other, you're screwed, because that's what they're going to choose the majority of the time, right? So your data is faulty coming out of that, right? One of the coolest things about AI now is it can listen to the phone call, it can summarize, and it's of course the AI summary is going to be consistent because it's summarizing everyone's call regardless of who was doing the talking, and it can also pick the right disposition, which is programmable. So to me, your data is way more useful, way more impactful in that instance. And so I think that taking the subjectivity of human nature out of that, I think that's a practical application. Of course, we have the ones on the quality end where before you had to, supervisor had to go and listen to phone calls and on what are they getting? 1%, maybe 5% of the amount of calls the agent is taking. We know that AI and QA programs right now can listen to all of your phone calls across all. It can view all of your interactions, your email, your chat. It can score them. It can actually provide feedback to that agent. So the supervisor is looking at outliers and not having to monitor all the people. So that's another practical application. Where it's going. We talked about Gen AI, right? And like I said, Gen AI was new, but now there's agentic AI. Right now, we're moving into reasoning and problem solving and action taking, and I think that takes a chatbot no offense to anyone's software, but we've all used chatbots on, on websites, and you get through about 2-3 questions, and then they say the chatbot goes, I got to transfer you to an agent, right? It gives up because you're asking something that was outside of the knowledge base or whatever information it's pinging. The new agentic AI now has the ability to reason. It has the ability to not only look up keywords in databases, but it can be programmed to take action based on what the caller says. That's the next step that we're in right now and actively progressing through. That makes it exciting, right? Because now your agents, who are your most expensive resource, they're not doing things like resetting passwords and giving out bank balances and stuff. That stuff doesn't need to be done by them anymore. So I think those are some practical applications of AI in our space right now.
Those are very, very insightful and very entertaining as well, because I mean, I can relate, right? You ask a question, 1 or 2 after that, oh, let me transfer you to someone. And that also in the context of user experience, oftentimes no one picks up. So you have seen that too.
Exactly. You transfer, and then you're waiting. And then if someone does pick up, they don't know that you just talked to their chatbot. They don't have any of that information, and they ask you all the same stuff all over again. I absolutely hate that.
Exactly. Mike, what are your take on AI, ML, Gen AI, the whole space?
So Brandon brought up a really important point. When you look at the call center and the old call center where we had miscellaneous down there, and that was the 90% fill-in where we had absolutely no information. We now have the ability for AI to understand what is happening and to offer solutions, whether that is as an IVR or with a customer service agent behind it. But again, as I mentioned earlier, I want to put him out of business. I want that process to go up to the upstream device. We don't have 1,000 different things breaking in customer homes. It's a much smaller subset. If we can understand it by the time the customer calls in, by golly, we certainly can understand it at the device itself. And again, it's just a matter of time before we get that technology out to the device. It needs to be, again, distributed, because if, let's say I have a small number of devices, 10 million devices, and I'm taking, 3% calls on a daily basis. Do I really have enough compute in the cloud to deal with it? Does it scale? 10 million? How about 100 million, right? That is at a very high cost. The amount of problems that we're seeing in the customer home are really a very small subset. And, except for the, hey, I forgot my password, how do I figure it out? Those types of things that will probably need some hand holding. The majority of issues that are driving customer angst should be solvable in the home before it even gets to the customer service agent. We're not going to put them out of business 100%, but we want to take the problems that are network inspired, meaning, the network has a problem, my Wi-Fi has a problem, the core has a problem, I can't get to someplace, my lag is high. We want to solve those things in the home. We want to leave the, hey, I forgot my password, I need some help. Yeah, guess what? That's, the customer isn't really angry about that. They might be angry at themselves, but they can't be angry at an agent because they forgot their password or they can't look on the back of the device. So I think this is really evolution where it needs to get to. And the first operator that gets to it, that's going to be the operator that is going to have a distinguishing brand across the industry. And having a distinguishing brand will drive their brand up through the roof. So again, I think it's very transparent, the direction we need to go. It's going to take a lot of smart people for us to get there. The AI engines, Gentic AI, is definitely going to play a big part, but we're still probably an evolution cycle or 2 away from really getting where we need to be.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's an ever changing landscape. Like all of you mentioned, like as we're just getting used to Gen AI, you suddenly see agentic AI. So who knows what's next, right? So I think we had a few minutes reserved for Q&A and things like that. So Nitin, do we have some time, or like we already passed time?
No, I think we have some time. We can go ahead with the discussion.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So I think my last segment was really what is like the path forward looking ahead, and what is your recommendation from each one of you? What do you see, like, this is going ahead, and your thoughts on that? So I'll probably start with you, Ankit, and then Brendan, then Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably say do the fundamentals right. Like we talked a lot about like data silos and customer service not having a clue, or AI bots not being able to answer questions. I think, and the fundamental is having a very comprehensive data strategy, and because at the end of the day, uh, these models will get commoditized. The real value will come from how accurate and how um, low latency data access you have for these AI bots to act on it. Whether it's on device, and whether it's on the cloud, whether it's an agent assist. I would say that that's for me is the key to unlocking a lot of the value that these different AI and ML developments promise.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ankit. Brendan?
I would say, and this goes along with one of the things that Mike said. What's next, or what needs to happen, I think, especially for the telecom industry, is embrace the change, embrace what's happening. I don't want to offend anyone, but if you compare industries, the telecom industries to traditionally scores pretty low in compared to other industries when it comes to customer satisfaction, customer engagement, how they're feeling about that. And part of that is they've been slow to embrace some of the things. Like one of the things Mike's talking about being uber proactive. I'd love to see this industry go in that direction. But quite frankly, I'll talk to this real quickly. I was at a conference last month. I'm not going to tell you the name of the company, but it was a table side thing, and the guy was telling me they don't use AI in anything, and they're not going to. They're not. It's not even on their radar. He's not even considering it. Not even the basic stuff. And I don't think he's alone. I don't think their business is alone. I think there's still a lot of slothfulness in this space. And I'm an F1 fan. I don't know if you guys know, like Max Verstappen. He's the 4-time F1 champion. Shout out to the Oracle Red Bull team. Love that guy, right? But listen, if you're running a business and you're not doing AI and not considering AI at all, that's like you taking your family car and saying, I'm going to race Max Verstappen around the track. It's insane. He's going to be around there 7-8 times before you get around it. Now you're going to get around there. You're gonna make it. Your family car is going to make it. So your business is going to be there, but your competition is going to literally run laps around you. So I think we have to embrace what's changing in other industries and bring it into the telecom space.
Yeah, great comparison, by the way. All right. Mike, how about you?
Well, Swankit, brought a really important thing up, back to fundamentals. Let's see, we've been on the webcast for about an hour, and during this hour, terabytes of information from homes has streamed up into not the data lake, not the data ocean, we'll call it the data galaxy, right? How much of that data is actionable where there's enough compute to do something about it, right? We need to get back to fundamentals. We need to be able to drive a model that is simple, that drives actionable data. There's not enough processing power in the cloud to handle terabytes of information. Brandon said we get reports the next day. I'm sorry, Brandon, it's not the next day. It's the next week. We have digressed in the wrong direction. We need to move to a model that is actionable, meaning proactive or minimally reactive. But, I want to move it to the proactive side. I don't want the subscriber to feel anything. That's where we need to get to. However, we do need to walk, crawl, walk, run in order to get there. So let's jump back into fundamentals. Let's make sure we have actionable data with a minimal amount of data going up that we can take immediate action on. And then let's take that model and start to evolve it where I can understand and see things happening where real agentic AI starts to come into play. And I can say, wow, looks like I've got some Wi-Fi interference coming in. Let's change the channel map in the customer home to support what the customer is actively doing. And again, this is not going to be something that happens overnight, but gosh, we've had 20 years. You know, it's about time for us to step up, right? But again, Ankit, spot on. Let's start at fundamentals and get to where we have actionable data. What do we do with terabytes of data on a daily basis? Run reports that senior executives read at the end of the week that, did they help me really solve my problem? Well, maybe we'll put a plan together to figure it out down the road. Hey, that's got to stop. We need to get in front of our customers. We need to ensure that their experience is optimized. And if we want to grow our network, that's going to be the path forward. Thank you very much.
Great insights. Thank you so much, actually, for Ankit, Brendan, Mike, all of you. So I think we had quite a few interesting topics we touched upon. So we talked about customer engagement. We talked about the technology behind it. The data, the core KPIs which kind of drive. But again, I think fundamental to all of this is core of any business is really starts from the customer, right? So, and we have a shift and a renewed focus towards customer engagement, and we had different strategies we talked about, be it AI, be it technology, in terms of how we kind of put the focus back to our customer, which is the most important thing, I guess, for any business. So, and I believe there were quite a few takeaways from this call. I'm sure, the audiences in this call have enjoyed. I had a very good time, with Ankit, Brandon, Mike. Very insightful, very thought-provoking. So I think you all had a great time today. With that, I think I'll just conclude today's thing, and back to you, Nitin.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Arindam, for moderating this panel to a great length, and thanks a lot to Mike, Brandon, Ankit for sharing your thought process. I'm sure every participant who attended this event must have taken a lot back, and they will try to access it and try to understand more, collaborate, and impart the knowledge to their fellow people as well. It was a lovely discussion from all of you. Just for information, those who couldn't attend the session or wish to review it, the recording will be accessible on our company's YouTube channel, as it was LinkedIn Live as well. From our company, AI CoreSpot, we are excited about the upcoming technological innovations we'll be delving this year. Our future events will cover a wide array of sectors, which includes banking, financial, insurance industry, for telecom, retail as well. We have for healthcare, supply chain, manufacturing, and we keep on adding the industries wherever the technology is there. Keep in touch for ongoing education opportunities. Stay updated on all the tech news by visiting our website and follow us on our social media channel. There you will find comprehensive information, notifications of forthcoming events, guidance on how to sign up. As your support is key, please engage with us and spread our content online. We extend our sincere appreciation to our knowledge and innovation partner, which is InfoVision, knowledge and technology partner, which is Digit7. Visit infovision.com website to explore more about what tech innovations they are also going through. It was a pleasure to present this session. We hope you all enjoyed it as much as we did as well. We look forward to more engaging sessions in the near future. Take care, and here's to a great day and year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.